Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news and transfer news as nonsense, Amorim. I don't believe you what you said about Gyökeres last night, and I'll tell you why. I think celebrating Amorim saying we're not interested in players if they're just looking for the Champions League at Manchester United is the sort of PR the Glazers have been getting away with for years. I'll explain my point of view. You can have yours. Also, more importantly, it's bloody match day. I've got my bottle of Malbec. The hoodie's in the wash. If you know, you know. We're ready to go in Spain tonight. Can't wait. Really excited about it. And look, who knows what's going to happen. But it's our season, isn't it? It's our season. We're also going to be talking about Jonathan Tah. He's been linked to Man United last night. He's available on a free from Leverkusen. Plays a very similar system defensively to what United play. Is that a deal Man United are going to do? We'll look at that as well. Also, some interesting comments coming in from Manu and Garnacho about the season not being saved by winning the Europa League. Also, Garnacho posting under Yamal's Instagram that he's the best player in the world. Not Garnacho, Yamal. Interesting, isn't it? Yamal's 17, Garnacho's 20. Some people start going, Yamal is a generational talent. He's probably going to be the world's best player and he will probably compete with the likes of Ronaldo and Messi for that sort of status. Garnacho's 20 and just a normal sort of talented 20-year-old. You can't compare the two. But I find it interesting, Garnacho saying Yamal's the best player in the world, but they're not observing why he's the best player in the world because he passes. You know, he knows when to pass. So we'll talk about that as well. But look, let's start off with, I don't think there's a lot more to say about the game. We've got the preview. We've done the, Maud's and Beth did their sort of predicted lineups. I'm just very excited about that. But during the press conference last night, and it was a fantastic question from Beth, basically asking, Gyökeres was brought in from Coventry. You nurtured him into one of the best strikers in Europe. Is that what you're looking to do again, or you're looking for someone more experienced? Amorim was asked that question. He answered it in a certain way. I think he's basically saying he wants an experienced striker to come in and help people like Xerxes and Obi and Rasmus, which is interesting. But then he was asked a more direct question around the Gyökeres deal. And this is what he had to say. And he basically said, Gyökeres deal, I didn't talk to him, but if a player only wants to come to Manchester United to play Champions League, then he won't come. We want players who want to represent United, not players who want to play certain competitions. Now, I wasn't really on social media last night. I did the Barcelona game. I was exhausted. I went to bed, woke up, been busy again and started this. I would imagine some of the, cheerleading to that statement from Amorim over social media, and I can't name people. It might be people I like. It might be people who I think are twats. It doesn't matter. I would imagine there's a load of people cheerleading that statement from Amorim. And honestly, I love Amorim. I back Amorim, but I just think that's pure PR. I think that's the Glazers' work. I mean, I don't think it even makes any sense. I just think it's cheerleading nonsense. We're Manchester United. I mean, they may as well got Gary Neville next to him going, we're Man United. What does it even mean? What does it even mean? We don't want players, if a player wants to play in the Champions League, he won't be coming to Man United. We want players who want to represent United, not players who want to play in certain competitions. And yet, this is why Jason Wilcox should be fielding these questions. This is why Omar Barada should field these questions. The manager of Man United, who will not be negotiating with agents, he will not be negotiating budgets, should not be answering questions like that. Because I like it. I love the statement. We all love the statement. Manchester United, if you don't want to play for Man United, don't bloody come. Man United. But look at where we are in the league for a minute. Where's that got us? We're Manchester United. Yeah, we're one of the worst teams in the Premier League. We're Manchester United. Yeah, if we don't win the Europa League, next season's going to be horrific. Amorim in the same interview admits that winning the Europa League will change what we can do in the summer. Is that not a little bit hypocritical? We don't want players that want to play in the Champions League. We want players that want to play for Man United. But if we are in the Champions League, we'll be able to do better things. How does that make sense, though? So you're basically saying that if we're in the Champions League, we can buy better players, but you don't want to bring players in that want to play in the Champions League. It's sort of like, And also, honestly, I understand where Amorim's coming from. It's a PR answer. It's the right answer. It's the answer that gets us all banging the chest and going, we're Manchester United on the day of a big game. But I haven't seen the reaction. You're going to react. I haven't seen what people have said on social media. There'll be those people out there who are secret Glazer fans who constantly back everything the Glazers do, going, oh yeah, this is great, because it benefits the Glazers. If I was Joel Glazer and I heard Ruben Amorim saying, I don't want players who want to play in the Champions League, I want players who want to play for Man United, you're basically saying, I don't want Gyökeres, I want Delap. But Delap apparently wants to play in the Champions League as well, so what's next? Danny Ings? Glazers are going, yeah, cheap. We want cheap. But the best thing about this is we can say we don't want players if they want to play in the Champions League. We want them to play for. We want players who want to play for Man United, right? It's absolutely fantastic. And yet, this is a fact. Man United are saying to agents of players, we can't talk deals with you until we know if we're in the Champions League. So we're literally doing it as a football club. We're literally saying to people, we can't commit to you unless we know we're in the Champions League. So we're actually saying to players, basically, if we're not in the Champions League, we don't want you. But then the player can't say, if you're not in the Champions League, I don't want to come to you. It's not spin. It's just positive PR. That's all it is. You're telling me, right, if Man United win the Europa League and qualify for the Champions League, and Omar Barada walks into Ruben's office and says, Ruben, Gyökeres will come. He will come because we are in the Champions League. You're telling me Ruben's going to go, don't want that mercenary. He wouldn't have come if we weren't in the Champions League. Forget it, Omar. Tell him to F off. Get me Danny Ings. He's going to go, get me the deal done. Get me the deal done, because he knows the player. He knows Gyökeres isn't a mercenary. He's took him from bloody Coventry, where nobody really wanted him. He's turned him into a world-class striker. He's going to take him in a heartbeat. And that's why, for me, it's just not that deep. And yet, I think people will be cheerleading that statement. And I'm like, hold on a minute. We win the Europa League and Gyökeres wants to come to United. Is Amorim going to go, no, you wouldn't have come to us if we didn't get into the Champions League. I don't want you. I'm going to go for some shit, cheap striker that would come to us regardless. And also, can we just say, there is another way of looking at this. What's the problem with wanting a striker that will only come to us if we're in the Champions League? Does that not show ambition over the striker that will come here anyway? This is my point. Life is just not that simple. Like, you can turn anything into a negative and anything into a positive, and Man United are bloody brilliant at it. I look at it and I go, I'm meant to cheerlead the fact that we only want players that want to come to Manchester United. We don't want players who want the Champions League as well. Well, the best players tend to want to play in the Champions League. They have a small, short career. What player would you rather have? The player that's happy to come to us no matter what, or the player that's happy to come to us if we're in the Champions League? Well, what if the player that wants to come to us would come to us if we're in the Championship? Because they're just shit, you know? So it's just not the big statement everybody thinks it is to me. I think it's got hypocrisy. I think it's got idealism. I think it's a brilliant statement from Amorim, and I'm a massive fan of Amorim, but I don't for 1 minute believe Man United are saying to players, we don't want you if you want to play Champions League football. We don't want you. I mean, it doesn't even make sense, because we're not even in a position to sign Gyökeres until we know if we're in the Europa League or not, if we're in the Champions League or not. We can't sign him if we're not. In fact, I've probably just wasted everybody's time, because we can't sign Gyökeres if we're not in the Champions League. So why would we say we don't want you if you'll only come to us if we're in the Champions League? Because we can't bloody sign him if we're not anyway. So it's just noise, isn't it? It doesn't make any sense. I think it's very specific to Cunha, because that's the only deal we can do at the moment. And I think Cunha wants to come to Man United. So I think in relation to Cunha, it's absolutely brilliant. Top quality player, going to make us better, will come to us anyway. Yeah, that's brilliant, but not all the deals are going to be like that. Some of them will be well sought after strikers who are looking at options like Arsenal, Bayern Munich, Man United, Chelsea, and going, okay, what do I want to do? You know, We can't be the spoilt little brat going, well, if you don't want us, we don't want you. Some players, I mean, look at Kenda. Look at Kenda. He chose Chelsea over Man United. Amorim wanted him. So I just wouldn't read too much into it. And ultimately, I think if you're cheerleading it, you're basically a Glazer sympathiser, because the Glazers are going to love a statement from a Man United manager saying, if you won't come to us unless we're in the Champions League, we don't want you. Because as we know, people who want the Champions League are more expensive than people that don't. And I'll tell you for free, we're not getting back into the Champions League next year if we're just going to buy players that aren't bothered about the Champions League. The people who want to play in the Champions League are the best players. That's what we want. And we couldn't nurture a bloody jelly. So, you know, we need quality players at this football club. Absolutely. Absolutely. I also want to talk about Jonathan Tah very quickly. We can come back to that because there's a few other things I want to talk about. I want to talk about whether we should start De Ligt or Ahmad as well. Do get your comments in. On Jonathan Tah, we got linked to Jonathan Tah last night, centre-back at Leverkusen at the moment. One thing I don't know about Jonathan Tah, and I just need to check it very quickly, I think he's out of contract. I'm pretty sure he is, because he was going to go to Bayern Munich last summer and the deal fell through. Yeah, he's out of contract this summer. Out of contract this summer, and he's wanted by Bayern Munich, Man United apparently. So yeah, this came out from Sky Sports last night that United are looking at Tah. Let me just run a poll on this. Do you want Tah? Would you? Get me caps lock off. Would you take Tah? Yes or no? Right. I'm just going to say this. I don't think we are in for Tah. I don't think we are. He'll be 30 next season. He's going to want a very big contract. I think the person who's reporting it from Sky, I've never heard of them. And I think people are just thirsty for news. I think it's a big load of crap. I really don't think we're in for him. Look, I don't know everything. I don't know anything about this Tah story. I can tell you about Delap. I can tell you about Anana. I can't tell you about any other deal. And you know, I'm very happy that we got those two bits of information, because it's hard around United at the moment. Maybe United are in for Tah, but the way I look at it is this: last summer he desperately wanted to go to Bayern Munich and they couldn't get the deal done. I think he'll go to Bayern Munich. He's going to be 30 this season, and he's going to want big wages because he's out of contract, and he's going to want a big signing on fee. Apparently, the Eriksen deal cost us around 15 million. Before we even started paying wages, because we had to pay signing on fees and agent fees. So you're going to do that again. This goes completely against everything Man United are about at the moment. Man United don't want people who are 29, 30 on big wages and paying big fees. We're not going to do this deal. We're not going to do this deal. And that's all I'm going to say about it. I absolutely just think it's a big load of crap. And remember the 5 strands of a transfer, because we need to bring this back as much as we need to bring the hotter meter back. Every transfer story has 5 possible truths. It's total shit. It's totally true. It's the agent of the player using Manchester United to generate interest. It's the club using Manchester United to generate interest. Or it's the agent of the player using Manchester United to get a new contract at the club that they're at. I think this is the third option. I think this is the agent of the player using Manchester United to get a better term from the club that they probably want to go to, which is Bayern Munich. I don't see it. Should we do it? Look, there's nothing wrong with bringing in a talented 29-year-old centre-back who's going to be 30 next season. There's nothing wrong with it, but I don't believe it's what Man United are looking to do. Why is Obi in the travelling squad, says Annie. Very quickly then on this. So the travelling squad for Manchester United includes Obi, Kone, De Ligt, Ahmad. Obviously, Kone and Obi are not even in the Europa League registration process. They can't even play. So you could be taking them for experience. That's a good idea for one. Also, we are going to train in Spain tomorrow. So we're not flying back after the game today. We're going to train in Spain tomorrow. So basically, we'll barely train on Saturday, if at all. So our training session ahead of the Brentford game is in Spain tomorrow. So that is another reason why they've gone, because these players might be needed for the Brentford game. So that's why we've took a big squad. Now, the interesting thing with that is, because De Ligt and Ahmad have travelled, we're talking about whether De Ligt or Ahmad should start. They may not even be in the squad. They may just be there so they can train tomorrow for minutes against Brentford on Sunday. So we might not even see them in the squad. I would, out of the two, I'd use De Ligt if he's fit, because I think it's going to be more of a defensive game. But I wouldn't risk either of them if they're not ready. The home tie is the most important game, and I don't want to risk either of those two players now that we've got them back unless they're fully fit. So that's sort of where I am with that one. Good question though, Anip. Mustn't forget the Glazers have the final say, says Rob Always United. Nevster, welcome to the Members Club. Hope you were doing well. Walking Alive says it's not that deep, Mark. What's not that deep? Well, honestly, mate, go back to the statement. He basically said, we want players who want to represent United, not players who want to play in certain competitions. I think it is that deep, and I don't believe it either. I think it's just a PR exercise, which is why I don't think Amorim should be talking about that sort of stuff. I think the club should be taking the lead on this sort of stuff, because how can a manager say, we don't want players who want to play Champions League football, but the club are literally saying to players, we can't afford you unless we've got Champions League football. Like, we're literally doing it as a football club. So my point is, it's very idealistic to say you only want players who want to play for Man United regardless of what we're doing in Europe. Well, if that's the case, and somebody like, I don't know, Belieber at Brighton said, I desperately want to play for Man United and it doesn't matter whether you're in the Champions League or not, and Man United say to him, we can't afford you because we're not in the Champions League. We need to be in the Champions League to buy you. It doesn't actually make sense. We need the money of the Champions League to buy better players. So what does it matter whether a player wants to be in the Champions League or not? That's my point. Are we literally going to say to players, when we're in the Champions League, we don't want you because you might not have come to us if we weren't? We are going to buy them. I suppose in a way, Walking Alive's not right. It's not that deep. It's an irrelevant comment, because we're not going to say to players, we don't want you because you didn't want to come to us before. We're going to get them because we need to get the best. But fundamentally, I think it's a brilliant comment for Glazer sympathisers. I think it's absolutely superb, because it makes them start going, we're Man United. We only want players who want to play for Man United. We only want players. But who? Where have you been in a coma for the last 20 years? What footballer in the modern day is walking around in a full kit Man United saying, I only want to play for Man United? Most footballers are mercenaries. Man City have been successful for a decade off mercenaries. They weren't going to bed with Sean Go-to pyjamas on. They were playing for Man City because Man City were paying the best wages. And they played well for them because they're professional athletes. This myth that we need players who are obsessed with Man United, it belongs in the bloody 80s. You footballers are professional athletes now. They go where the money is. That's what they do. The key is not to buy Jadon Sancho, not to buy Alexis Sanchez. The key is to buy Kevin De Bruyne. The key is to buy Erling Haaland. People who will go where the money is, but are also motivated professionals, and when they put the shirt on, they play for the shirt. This idealistic, we only want players who play for Man United, want to play for Man United. They don't exist. They don't actually exist. That's why there are no Brian Robsons anymore. There are no Roy Keanes anymore. There are no Paul Inces anymore. There are no Wayne Rooneys anymore. Those sort of people aren't brought up in society like this anymore, because the world has changed. People look for what's best for them, but you need the professional ones who come to Manchester United. You know, people like Bruno Fernandes weren't lifelong Man United fans. I'm sure Bruno Fernandes, the summer before we bought him, was in talks with Spurs. And I'm sure he probably would have gone to Spurs. But circumstances didn't dictate that. We got him in the January, and look at him. He bleeds and breathes Man United now. You need Bruno Fernandes. You don't need people that are... They don't exist. They don't exist. They're very few and far between. There's very, very few people out there. Moses says Mark's wrong. I'm not wrong, mate. Tell me a player who doesn't play for Manchester United who's obsessed with playing for Manchester United. They don't exist. I know these players. I know the game. They've all got agents. They've all got multiple agents, social media managers. They're not there going around going, please sign me Man United. Please sign me Liverpool. They are individual brands, and you need to get the best professional ones to come to your football club and give everything and fall in love with the club. And that's what we did with Bruno, and I think that's what we're going to do with Cunha, and that's what we need to do. They're very few and far between. The only ones that I would say exist would be someone like Scott McTominay, who came through the youth system, loved the club. They're very few and far between. And you're not going to find many of them who aren't at Man United from the youth setup anyway. If we get Champions League football, but following year we don't, then what? They leave, says Garfield. Morning, Mark. I can see the Wasp behind you. You definitely won't be seeing the Wasp, Philip. I'm tired of their delusional shit, says Keel. Is it bad that I feel terrified about the match, says Maz Rawowi. No, I'm... Look, I must admit, I had a moment yesterday where I was just, went and read a book in the garden, and I was just lying on the sun lounger, which we very rarely get to do in the UK. And I was just sort of feeling a bit sleepy. So, I just lay there and sort of looked up into the sky in my sunglasses and started to think about the game. And I thought, you know what? I don't want that. And I know that feeling. I don't want that feeling when we were 4-2 down against Lyon and you think there's no way back. I don't think Bilbao are capable of doing it. But the worst case scenario is being 3 or 4-0 down and knowing it's over. That's what we've got to avoid tonight. Like, I'll take a draw. I mean, a lot of people said Barcelona were brilliant last night, but I'm sure Inter Milan are over the moon with a 3-3 draw. So the minimum we need to get out of that game is a draw. I don't want to say it because I don't want to accept a loss, but even a 1-0 loss, something like that. Thank God Mark is back, says Tusha. I don't think everybody agrees with that in the chat because I think some of them are Glazer sympathisers and quite like the comment that we only want players here who want to play for Man United. I've never heard such shit in all my life. But, that's up to you. That's the brilliance of what we do. I'm not here to smoke positivity when I don't believe it. I don't believe it because I know a lot, and so do you. You cannot say we only want players who want to play for Man United. If you want to play Champions League football, we don't want you. And then the club are going around going, we can't sign you unless we've got Champions League football. So it's an irrelevant comment. We're trying to buy players based on being in the Champions League. We won't buy them if we don't win this game tonight and next week. So what does it even mean? It doesn't mean anything. And a club that finished 8th last season and is in the bottom half this season is in no position to start dictating what type of players they want to come to the football club. It's idealistic, it's romantic, it's a fantasy. It won't happen. We're going to have to pay our way out of this. What we need to do, and some people will hate that statement, we need to pay our way out of this football. We need to buy our way out of this situation. And some people quite rightly will say, well, haven't you tried to do that for the last decade? Yes, we have. But I would take my neighbour's cat as our director of football over the last decade than what Man United did, just by going in front of them with pictures of players and saying, put your paw on what you think we should go for and what we should think we should pay, and we'd still be in a better situation. We need to buy our way out of this. Idealistics can shut up and sit down. We need to buy our way out of this with proper recruitment. There is nothing wrong with spending £1 billion on rebuilding Man United. In fact, we need to do it. But what we can't do is spend it again on the next Anthony, the next Alexis Sanchez. We've got to spend on the right players. That's why, for me, Cunha, Gyökeres, Ederson, Frimpong, Iheanacho, Costa. We're not going to get all of those, but I would happily spend, 300-400 million on those 6 players now. Because I don't believe they are the next Alexis Sanchez or the next Anthony. That's the only way this football club's going to get successful. I still go back to what I said when the Glazers put us up for sale. The only way out of this is billionaire owners hitting the reset button, clearing the debt and pumping money into the club. We might not like it, but that's what happens when things go wrong. We're not getting back on idealism. It's not going to happen. We're going to cut the wages. We're going to make ourselves sustainable. We're going to build a super stadium in the next 5 to 50 years. We're only going to buy players that are young and love Manchester United. We're just going to let them throw them. It's like a horse. We're going to buy a young horse and we're going to put it in a field and we're going to let it run around. And then one day it's going to win the Grand National. Oh, so you're not going to train it. You know, you're not going to actually get somebody to get on it and teach it how to jump or anything like that. No, we're just going to buy it cheap, young, and throw it in a field. And one day we'll take it to the Grand National, we'll put someone on its back and it'll run round, it'll break the record and we'll all be singing United. And the horse is called United and we're going to get Angry Ginge to ride it and it's going to be the best day ever. Okay, it's not based in any semblance of reality at all, is it? You can't... I saw United yesterday get linked to a Blackburn Rovers player, young, a player from Argentina that wasn't Mastantano, another player from Portugal, about 4 or 5 players we got linked to yesterday, all under 20. And I thought, this is great. This is absolutely brilliant. But at what point are we going to nurture them? Who is going to teach them? Like the question that Beth asked Amorim yesterday, we'd been talking about it in the afternoon about how to phrase it because basically we wanted to ask him about Gyökeres. And the way Beth phrased it was brilliant. She said, you nurtured Gyökeres from Coventry. I mean, look, Mark Robins did a good job with Gyökeres at Coventry. Acknowledge that. I think the way Coventry treated Mark Robins was a disgrace. But Amorim plucked him out of Coventry in the Championship, took him to Sporting, turned him into a Champions League striker that everybody wants, and he's 26. Amorim basically nurtured that player. He didn't buy a ready-to-go player. So the question to Amorim was, are you looking to do that again, Liam Delap? Or do you think, like the fans think, you need to bring in a more established striker, Gyökeres? That was the question in a clever way. Do you want to go younger and develop, Delap, or do you want to go ready to go, Gyökeres? Amorim didn't really answer the question, or did he? Because what he actually said is, we need to help the players that we've got. Rasmus, Xerxes, Obi. We need to help them. We need to help them score more goals. The interpretation is, what does he mean by that? Does he mean Garnacho, Ahmad, Bruno need to pass more? Or does he mean we need an experienced striker for them to learn from? I think he's saying what all of you are saying. I think he is saying we need an experienced striker to come into Manchester United. But that's going to cost money. And then you go back to what we're talking about before. We do need to buy our way out of this situation. Cunha's going to cost 60, 70 million pounds all in. Good. Good. At no point do I give a shit about that money. We need to spend that sort of money. If we had someone like Cunha tonight, we'd be laughing. We need to bring in some really good quality players into this football club as quick as possible. And look, the prime example of that is you can buy as many young players as you like. You can just keep buying these potential ballers. But unless they're Yamal, you're in trouble because Yamal's generational. Yamal is a potential Ballon d'Or winner at 17. He is like Rooney for us. He is like Messi for Barcelona. I mean, how they produce 2 in a row just needs to be studied. It's incredible what they do. But most young players need to be nurtured. Whether you're Steven Gerrard, whether you're John Terry, whether you're Paul Scholes, whether you're Rio Ferdinand, all these players ended up being world class, but they weren't world class at 17, 18, 19. They had to be developed. Who are developing our players? You know, it's amazing. Like, Yamal put a post on Instagram last night and Garnacho replied with best player in the world. And I'm like, you know what? I like that from Garnacho. He's obviously, you might not want them to be, but these players are social media aware. Some of them might be watching this show now. They're not going to reply, but they might be watching, in which case, I hope you win tonight. Fantastic. But their social media, they're on their social media. You know, social media has been around for a long time and these kids who are now men grew up with it. But you know, I read that comment from Garnacho saying Yamal's the best player in the world, and I thought, this is the problem at Manchester United, isn't it? It's not even a criticism of Garnacho. He is sat there at 20 years of age, and God, it's hard for me to remember what it's like to be 20. Some of you will be 20. I sort of remember from 20, I think I'd just moved to Ireland. Pratt. Yeah. Didn't know my arse from my elbow. Mistakes, you know, all sorts. So we're judging a 20-year-old who is playing in front of 75,000 people every week, putting on the Man United shirt. You know, there's still so much for Garnacho to learn. And that's the point. Who's teaching these players Amorim can only do so much from the training ground and the touchline. You need people on the pitch. And that front three doesn't have that experience. All right, Bruno's there, but Bruno's here, there, and everywhere. You know, he's the man. He's the man that you can't find. He's right back, left back, centre back. You know, the only position he doesn't play is in goal. So you've got Garnacho at 20 saying to Yamal, best player in the world. I guarantee every one of you are thinking exactly this. Well, if you think Yamal's the best player in the world, have you not analysed his game? I was watching Yamal last night, and I said it on the watch-along. What a flair player. Like, he was causing chaos down that Inter Milan left side. But he also creates a lot. He can take 3 or 4 players on and ping it into the top corner, but he can also put a deadly crossing. I mean, his crossing is unbelievable. Like, his ability to put a cross to the back post is almost Saka-esque. It's brilliant. And there's another winger who knows when to take people on and shoot and knows when to pass. So Yamal is 17 and already has mastered when to shoot, when to dribble, and when to put a cross in. You've got Garnacho at 20 going, you're the best player in the world, but is not capable of going onto a pitch and doing what Yamal does. Not on ability level, but knowing when to shoot, knowing when to pass, and knowing when to cross. But that's not Garnacho's fault. People will say, well, he should figure that out. But he also should have players around him giving him that guidance on the pitch. And people say, well, Bruno should do it. But Bruno was shooting from 40 yards at 1-0 down with 3 minutes to go against Bournemouth. You need more Casemiros in that team. We need more Casemiros who, against Lyon, go, I'm not shooting, I'm pinging it to the back post to Maguire. That's what you need. So this is a big problem for Manchester United. We are constantly looking at youngsters, but the youngsters we've got need nurturing and guidance. We need experienced players bringing into this football club. Because I still think the likes of Mainu, Garnacho, even Rasmus, Xerxes, Collier, all these players could be really good. Really good. But we need a few more 25 to 28-year-olds or 23 to 28-year-olds in that team who have played football and know the game and know what decision-making is. And it's not lost on me when Garnacho is saying to me, Yamal, you're the best player in the world. Yet Garnacho's biggest issue is his inability to decision-make like someone like Yamal. Sanil says, Onana, Mount, Anthony, Højlund, Casemiro, Malacia were 400 million wasted. If Amorim gets even half of what Ten Hag got to spend, he'll be successful, says Sanil. I disagree. I think we always need to come back to that and say that that's a completely different point, 400 million, because the 400 million was a waste because the people who were doing the deals. It wasn't Ten Hag who went out and paid £55 million for Mount with 1 year left on his contract, or 60 million for Casemiro. You know, we still need to negotiate better, but look, I would love to see Amorim given £400 million ASAP. Dan Davey says, Yamal also plays with Lewandowski, experienced striker, to have a go. We have Rasmus. I think that's a great point as well, Dan, because I'm telling you now, as good as Yamal is at 17, if he was running around taking people on and shooting every time, there'd be a certain Lewandowski kicking him up the arse within about 5 minutes on the pitch. It's a very good point, and it proves the point of what many of us have said. We need that experienced striker. And those experienced strikers, to be honest, want to play in the Champions League. It's not mercenary, it's ambitious. Just joined, Mark. Been asleep working nights. Are we getting De Gea back? I hope so. What's your thoughts? No, we're not, Tony. De Gea's coming back for a pre-season friendly as far as I know, but we're not getting him back as far as I know, no. Here we go. Here's another one. Here's another one for you. Man United, Aston Villa and Newcastle are chasing 18-year-old Cavani from second division side. The player has a release clause which stands at just £5 million. It's great. It's absolutely great. I'm never going to be against buying young talent because, you know, you might have the next Casido. You might have the next Matoma. And I'm mentioning Brighton here. But I've played the game. How many of you have played Football Manager or FIFA back in the day? You go online when the game's just come out, you haven't got a lot of money, and you find the website that lists all the young players that are going to be world beaters with the biggest, potential. And you sign about 10 of them, and then you start the season and you go, these players aren't ready. They actually need to be developed. I can't develop them because I haven't got any good players. And this is sort of like, it feels like that's what United are doing at the moment. We're like, oh, he's going to be good. 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 Leonardo DiCaprio FC. Everybody's under 25. And we need some experience. Like, we're going to finish in the bottom half of the Premier League. 18, 19, 20-year-olds are not going to help us in the next season to get up the league. He's crying out for Cunha, an experienced striker. Maybe even Trincao, Edison. He needs some bloody experience. Mate, thank you. I'm in a really bad place mentally, and this channel is what helps me distract and keep going. Thanks to the community as well, says I See Dead Bodies. Hope you're doing well, mate. Thanks for being a member. And don't forget, tonight, we rock. Tonight could be another amazing night like Leon. Can't wait. Sully says, I don't care how crap we are. It's a privilege to play for Man United. Be a lit, delete, or don't come. I think you're being very idealistic and a fantasist, Sully. I'm sorry. I just, your opinion, I'm sure some people will agree with you. I don't think that exists in modern football anymore. People wandering around saying no to Real Madrid, no to Bayern Munich, no to Arsenal. I only want to play for Man United. They're very few and far between, mate. And if that's what you're going to pin our future on, I don't want anything to do with it, because they will be... To find a player that only wants to play for Man United, who is talented and going to take us back to the top, good luck with that. And then you've got to pay for them. I just think it's such a minute target area. You're in a very, very, very small pond, and the football world's an ocean. I don't care. Look, I used to take the piss out of Man City for buying mercenaries, but I think most footballers are mercenaries. I don't think Luke Shaw's a Man United fan. I don't think Harry Maguire's a Man United fan. Bruno Fernandes, I don't think, was a Man United fan. And what have they all got in common? They're all professional footballers who have done a good job at this football club and put their bodies on the line. I'm not talking about ability. I know people are going to go in on Luke Shaw, but look, Man City have won 4 out of the last 6 Premier League titles. None of those players woke up and went, I love Man City. And yet they dominated football. None of those players were like, I want to go Man City. I only want to go Man City. They went there for a reason. They're going to earn money and they're going to win stuff. And that's what you do in the modern game. And it makes me laugh as fans that we want to be romantic and go, we only want players who want to play for Man United. Have you seen what Sir Jim Radcliffe and Joel Glazer is doing to our football club? We've sacked half of our workforce who love Man United. Like, people who, cared about this club, gone. We're literally going to build an arena stadium. No thought about football fans. We're going to build something where you can spend the whole day there. You can go to the cinema first. You can pop to Nando's. You can watch a Beyonce concert. We'll get the NFL over. We're going to, underground. We'll remove the pitch and it will turn into a bloody, ice skating rink. The whole club is mercenary. They're trying to take us into a Super League. Let's not pretend the core... It just makes me laugh when Man United start trying to talk about we only want people who want to play for Man United. And then I look at who owns us, and they've ripped the soul out of this football club completely. They've shat all over things that actually are what Man United stand for. And then we're meant to believe that suddenly we only want players who want to play for Man United. No, we only want players who are cheap. That's what we want. And it's just a spin to go, we don't want people who want to play in the Champions League. But... that's my opinion. Yours might be very different. As somebody said, it's not that deep. But we're actually saying to players, we can only sign you if we're in the Champions League. So how does that even work? We can only buy you if we're in the Champions League, but we don't want you if you want to play for us if we're in the Champions League. It's like confusing. I wonder what else Amorim lies about, says Robert McCormack. Well, I just think, unfortunately, I like Amorim. I want him to be successful. I don't agree with the Amorim out movement. I want him to do well at the football club, and I'll back him to the hilt. But unfortunately, this is what happens when he's doing too many interviews. Where's the CEO? Where's the technical director? You know, all it needs is Omar Barada to come out today or do an interview, I don't know, with the business or Reuters or something and say, look, we're not looking to have a summer like last summer because look at where we finished in the league. We've lost a lot of money. If we're in the Champions League, it allows us to buy better. If we're not in the Champions League, then we've got to lower our expectations and shop in a different shop. We all know that's the truth. That's what should be out there. But what confuses us is we don't want players if they don't want to play in the Champions, if they'll only play us in the Champions League, because in the same interview, Amorim literally said, winning this tournament will change our summer. Hope you're doing good. Hoping for a good result tonight. Up the United stand, says Josh. And Glenn C says, maybe it needs to be framed. We want players who are determined to get us back in the Champions League and back competing, says Glenn. We're not getting back in the Champions League next season anyway. We won't be in the Champions League. If we don't win this tournament, we're not going to be in the Champions League. The enormity and excitement around this is the Europa League. This is the Wish version of the Champions League. This is the B-Tech version. You know, this is not the Champions League. We should be winning this, really. For who we are and what we pay, we should be winning this tournament. But by no means are we favourites. So the reason this is so exciting tonight and the reason we're all buzzing is because we're not buzzing because it's the Europa League. There would be a level of excitement to that. But we're buzzing because we're like, this is the promised land. If we can win this tournament, we get European football next year, we get money. That is the enormity of what we're playing for. If we don't win it and we get knocked out or we lose the final, we won't be in the top 5 next year. 100%. We are not good enough. I don't think we'll be in the top 5 next year anyway. But we certainly won't be in the top 5 if we've got to deal with a no European budget. I don't know. Don't even know if we'd be in Europe because you've got to win a domestic cup or be in the top 8. So bringing players in that are determined to get us in the Champions League. Look, Danny Ings would be determined to get us back in the Champions League. Doesn't mean he's going to be good enough. You get what you pay for in football. The only escapism from that is if you bring through some superstar from the youth team that costs you nothing, you're going to have to pay. Name me a player that's going to come to Man United in the summer and say, I don't really care about if we're not in the Champions League for the next 3 years. I just want to play for Man United. And tell me their price. Cunha. Where's the rest of the budget, you know? Based on the rumours, says James Cave, Tar, Edison, Anacho, Cunha, Gyökeres were all clearly interested in players who currently play the system. Considering the value, I'd be amazed if we don't go for Frimpong. Well, I know we spoke about Frimpong, James, yesterday, and I know we've spoken to Frimpong, but it's gone very, very quiet. What do you think about Nico Williams? I think Nico Williams is very interesting because, as we know, it was only, 2 weeks ago that Amorim name-dropped Cunha in a interview, and before we know it, we're nearly at here we go. He's also name-dropped Nico Williams, saying he's a special player, and Nico Williams has said it's every kid's dream to play at Old Trafford. Look, it's like somebody liking a post on Instagram. It's a huge leap to say that we're going to go after him, but his release clause is achievable. I think it's below 60 million. His wages would be massive. Look, I want Nico Williams to have the shittest game of his life tonight and next week. The same as Cherky. But look, when the manager is calling players out like that, he could just be doing it because he genuinely thinks it. He could be doing it because he'd like to buy him. Patrick Lynch says, winning the Europa League and getting the Champions League is not a certainty. Could Amorim be saying that coming to United is worthwhile even without the Champions League? I agree Champions League is needed to attract the best players, but he has to sell the idea of coming to United regardless. There's nothing wrong with what he said, Patrick. It's a brilliant statement. There is absolutely nothing wrong with what he said. From a manager, I would expect it. My point is, everybody cheerleading it, I think, is ridiculously naive because we can all say statements to make people proud. You know, we can all make statements on the day of a game to get people going, we're Manchester United. But the reality is, it's full of holes. That's what I'm saying. I'm not going to sit here cheerleading it, going, we're Manchester United, because actually, whether you firmly believe United are saying to players, we only want you if you want to play at the club, not the Champions League, as we've discussed, there's just so much all over that. And as I said as well, if you're a player that wants to play in the Champions League, does that not show ambition? If I said to Ruben Amorim, I want to play for Manchester United, but I'm 27 next season and I want to play in the Champions League, if you're in the Champions League, I'm really interested in coming. And I leave it at that. And then Amorim goes, I don't want you because you said if you're in the Champions League. And then I come back and I go, so you'll buy me if you're not in the Champions League? No. and that's what makes me laugh. It's like it's a statement that's irrelevant, you know, because we're actually saying to players, we can't buy you unless we're in the Champions League. And look, let's be honest. Let's talk about Gyökeres because that's what it's all about. Gyökeres may come to Man United if we're in the Champions League. We will only buy him if we're in the Champions League. End of conversation. So whether he'd come to us if we're not in Europe, I would advise him not to anyway. At 27, do you want to be playing a season or two out of Europe? I can't lie, we're not in Europe next year if we don't win this tournament. And if we don't win this tournament, I don't think we'll be in Europe the year after. So why would one of the world's best strikers go, I'm joining Man United and not being in Europe for 2 years when I could go to Arsenal and play in the Champions League next year and try and win the Premier League? I understand that because that's the modern footballer. And I think it's unfair to say, well, fuck him then. We never wanted him anyway, because I don't think that world exists anymore. But if we are in the Champions League and he goes, yes, I want to play for Man United in the Champions League, I'd sign him. I wouldn't have a problem with it. I don't care that you want Champions League football because that to me shows ambition, and I understand why you wouldn't sign for us if we weren't in the Champions League because we're trajecting somewhere horrible. You got to pay for the best. The modern footballer, you got to pay for the best. Simple. Loans, cheaps, freebies, says Keel Robinson. How have the owners ever been successful in business? Speculate to accumulate is what's needed in football and business, says Anders. Stop the interviews and let him train the players, says Dave. Yeah, he does too many of those. Doylers says Targuaya and Cunandes. It is wishful thinking to believe we're getting that much better this soon. How many of the current squad do you think could be in a league-winning side? None. But Doylers, today's match day. We have a massive game tonight and we're good enough to win the Europa League, and we've got to take it in stages. Talking about Champions League, who we're going to sign, summer transfer windows, what's going to happen next season, how long Amorim will survive under the Glazers. All these things are topics. But are we good enough to win the Europa League? Yes. If we win the Europa League, will it change our course across the summer and what we can do? Yes. Go back to what I said. Can we win the Europa League? Yes. When's the match? Tonight. Will we enjoy it? I hope so. Can we do it? Let's have it. It's all about that. It's all about that. We've been talking about this since Christmas. Winning the Europa League, probably in our recent history, it's such a different path. You're literally, I don't know whether anybody ever saw the Poseidon Adventure. It's about a boat. And it turns over. They're all on a boat in the sea, and you know, one of these like cruise ships, and it's New Year's Eve, and there's a big storm, and the boat flips over. Yeah, cracking film. The majority of people go one way, and then a handful of other people say we don't think it's that way, it's this way, and the handful of people make it. They make it to the end of the boat that's actually sticking out of the sea. They're banging on the top and they get rescued. The other lot, they've gone the wrong way and they drowned. I think Man United are in that situation. It's like, are we going to sink or are we going to get out? And that to me, win the Europa League, we've got a chance of getting out. Don't win the Europa League, God knows where we're heading, you know? And we've been saying it for months and nothing changed. That just adds to the excitement about what's happening tonight. Like I don't think we're going to be okay if we don't win this tournament. I mean, I know Amorim's tried to play it down a little bit. Some of the players have tried to play it down a little bit. I mean, I listened to Mainu and Garnacho saying that we want to win the Europa League. It will, it will provide something, but it won't make it a good season. I think it goes beyond that. I think it goes beyond that. I think it's like just so important to win it. Yeah, really, really, really do. I can't wait. You get what you pay for in football, says Playmaker. We paid a fortune for Rasmus, Xerxes, Sancho, Anthony. We still haven't got our money's worth. Yeah, you got to buy. Anybody who thinks that we need to stop spending money, why don't you go and do a work experience with the Glazers? They love you. We didn't like the 350k, but we loved it when Casemiro said, "Don't worry about it, I'm coming to fix it." I guess it's in part about attitude, says Glenn C. River Manu says he lied about Rashford, Robert, to remove the wage. Say the line, Gary. We're Manchester United, says Carlo. And Nick P says, is Amorim not just churning out some damage limitation PR? I mean, I've floated a trip to Mexico to my other half. It doesn't mean we're going. Dale says, what are United's midfield options this summer, Mark? Ederson would be perfect, but we need more than one. We won't be signing Ederson unless we win the Europa League, mate. It won't happen. Like this, Man United are literally saying to players' agents, we will only be coming back if we win the Champions League, if we win the Europa League. Like there are literally deals we can do, but we can't do. Garnacho can be in the top 5 wingers in the future with the right mentality and effort, but that mentality and effort needs to come from players around him as well, says False 9 Flies. Keel Robinson says, I want to win, but this is what I meant by losing might be healthy for the club in the long run. The owners are so delusional. And Dan Davey says, with Yamal, he plays with Lewandowski, experienced striker to have a go. We have Rasmus. Do you think we have what it takes to win the Europa League, putting aside incompetence and low IQ, says Tom? Tom, I sometimes question how we're going to win the Europa League, but I also have to remind myself that I have consistently said since Christmas we're going to win the Europa League. So I'm going to stick by that. I think about Lyon and look at what happened there. But the players need to take that Lyon result into tonight, into next week, and into the final. There's no point having Lyon and going, oh, that was great. You've got to look at that and go, that was the ultimate get out of jail. That was like, that doesn't happen. So you've got to take that, remember that, put it in your head, and play every minute of this remaining Europa League quest like it matters. Thanks everyone for watching. We are back tonight, of course, and I think Beth's doing something at 2, but 8 o'clock kickoff, countdown to kickoff. Can't wait. Thanks everyone for watching. Absolute legends. Love all the different opinions. That's what it's all about. Yeah. I want this game now. It's going to be a long day waiting for this, but I'll see you all later. Take care.